Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with us, Bill Lloyd. Bill, good to talk to you again.
Hi, Michael. Good to see you again.
Yeah, I tell you what, you've got a lot going on. You got a brand new album out, and there's a lot of stuff that when you were on before, we didn't get to touch on. So we'll have to cover that as well as all the new stuff.
We will fix all the world's problems by the end of this conversation.
In 30 minutes, we will have everything solved. They should have come to us sooner.
Yeah, no kidding. Where are they when you need them? So.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one of the things I think we touched on it briefly, before, was your time at the Country Music Hall of Fame. That had to be really cool.
That was a really interesting situation. I started working down there about 2004, and it lasted a few years. I was a stringed instrument curator, so I worked in the archive, and I built a new database, and I went through all the stuff that had been transferred from the old museum that was down on Music Row to the new place downtown, and got to put my hands on everything, which was amazing. And I would call up George Gruen over at his place, and he would reappraise these instruments that were incredibly underinsured, that just because it had been years and years since they'd done that. And but one of the things besides and I wrote some articles for the Country Music Journal, but my main love of working down there was something I got to do for years. Even after I left there, I was still hosting these programs of a program called Nashville Cats. And this is something I talked to with one of my bosses down there and said, gosh, there's a Musicians Hall of Fame here, then they do a great job. And I said, we need to reach more into the community here of musicians, the studio guys and stuff. And I kind of lobbied for it, and we ended up doing it. And I did about 40 of those programs over the course of like 10 or 12 years. And then finally, they got smart and said, instead of paying you to come in and do it, we got people here on staff that can do it. And I said, but they always invite me, and I'm always happy to come down and watch the programs now. They're great, and they've covered a lot of ground over the years. But I got to meet and play with a lot of first generation guys from the A team and people from earlier generation from when I got here, and really dig into their careers and find out what they had done. And that was a real wonderful experience.
To tell me this, Bill, from those conversations that you had with those guys, what are a few of the things that came up that have really stuck with you?
Just the way records were made and the way they get made now. We largely don't need, it's nice to have a big studio to cut your basic tracks, but like for my new record, there are a few songs that were cut in big rooms. Some of them were cut in really small rooms, but having multiple musicians play in the same room at the same time gives a feel that you don't quite get from overdubbing. And I've made a lot of records where I just overdubbed everything myself. In fact, I think on this new record, there's like 4 tracks that it's just me. I'm playing everything. But for the most part, getting a groove going with other musicians and that's what they did. And there was so much, you listen to the classic country records, especially, there's so much space. Not every little thing is being filled up with sound. You can hear the air in the room. And that's what I love, because there's, I don't know, you listen to a Tammy Wynette ballad. I don't know if you saw that Showtime George and Tammy thing, but it kind of brought back what great singers can do in a room with great musicians, and they had real magic happens there. And I got to hear the stories about all that, and I got to even play with people like James Burton, Matt Gaden, all kinds of folks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you talk about, leaving the air. To me, when you're recording, it's kind of like, a visual ad, or
Yeah,
where you need white space in
yeah,
there,
right,
because
right,
otherwise the
right,
message gets lost. And it's the same
right.
thing musically. When everything is so compressed to where it's just, audio overload.
Yeah, they call it the brick wall these days.
Yes, exactly.
And it can be kind of powerful the first 15, 20 seconds, and you're going, wow, this really rocks. And then after a while, your ears get fatigued. You
Mhm.
know, I don't know if people notice it, but people who listen to music a lot and really love music, they're not just there for the visceral experience of being pummeled by sound. They're really, there to hear nuances in songs.
Right.
And that's what, it's not a lost art, but it is something that was more prevalent back then.
Well, I'll say this, it seems to have been lost in most pop music.
Yeah. Well, what gets called pop these days isn't the same what was called pop when we were growing up, I think. So there's a
Exactly.
generational shift there. Um, and it's just everything changes all the time. That's the one thing about getting older. You just kind of go, well, it's change is constant.
Right. Well, the other part of that is I always look at it like this. I'm not the target audience for what's on
Absolutely.
contemporary hit radio.
Yeah.
So when I don't get it, I don't feel bad. I
Yeah.
just don't get it because it's like, because personally, I'm a melody guy.
Yeah.
Give me a good melody, give me a good hook, and I'm happy. But when you hear something and it's just all rhythm driven, and
Yeah.
it's say everything is so compressed, it's just like, whoa, okay, it's
I
just
hear
too
you.
much.
I understand. On this new record, I'm at this stage of my life where I'm largely making these records for me and for anyone who cares to listen. I'm not following any format like I had to 35 years ago or whatever. And I I just kind of enjoy making records for me, and that's kind of a nice thing of not having to worry about what the trends are or anything like that. It's always interesting to me when you get older artists who kind of latch on to younger things, and they're, you know, oh, this is my hip hop track or whatever. Although I have to say, on this new record, I let myself kind of explore. There's actually a reggae song on this new record. There's a bluegrass song, and these are all things I've flirted with before, but just never put on one of my own records. So
Yeah, well, I was gonna say you actually, uh, kind of have a hit on the two tone ska sound there.
well, yeah, I love that reggae trance. What do they call it? Rub-a-dub style.
Hmm.
And my buddy Jonathan Bright, who I work with a lot in the studio here in Nashville, he had a friend from Jamaica who he got to do an overdub of what they call toasting,
Hmm.
and sort of doing the chant, rhythmic chant, melodic chant over the top of the track we had, and that turned out great. It gave it some, yeah, a little bit of a legitimacy, made it sound kind of more legit than a couple Nashville, Tennessee white guys, just you know,
Yeah. Well,
stealing their culture, you
cultural
know.
appropriation.
Yeah, exactly. God, can we not feel guilty about everything these days? I swear.
Well, I'll
So,
tell you, "Don't Watch Me, Watch Yourself" is the track we're,
yeah,
talking
thank
about
you,
for
thank you.
those who haven't, heard it yet. And I'll say, when I was listening to the album, Bill, it's a musical journey where, like you say, you're going on, you've got songs that, your power pop fans will gravitate to, country fans gravitate to, but then you also get, diverge a bit. And the one thing that struck me on the initial listen was there's a number of tracks where you're rocking out pretty good.
Oh, well, thanks. He's I like the rock, RAWK rock. Rock. I like to rock. And yeah, it's there's one song called The Number System, which
Mhm.
is just it's kind of like an instrumental, except I'm yelling out the chord sequences and using what they call the number system, where if you're in the key of C, well, tonic will be C, and that's one. And so I'm yelling out the chord sequences. So that's the lyric,
Mhm.
so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, that
It's,
that
I
track's
mean,
got a real '60s garage band kind of feel to it.
very much so. Yeah. Like an old, but it's like the Ventures on steroids, or something, uh, and, yeah, there's a number of, styles and different kinds of songs on
Yeah.
this record, and I'm really proud of it. I like the diversity of it.
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you the title track, yeah, the intro on that is really nice.
Oh, look into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really, compressed guitar lick, and the one thing about it is that there's a sort of not counterpoint, but like a melodic thing that goes underneath it with the bass and the other guitars that kind of weave together with it that makes a nice harmony sound. And then that lick kind of repeats through the song over all the chord changes. So it kind of drones on. And I really like that. I wrote that song with a guy named Pat Buchanan, not to be confused with any politicians we might remember. And he's a great guitar player who I've worked with for 20 something years. We've written a lot together. And anyway, he doesn't play on that track. He plays all the slide stuff on another song called This Ain't My Parade, which there's a video for as well.
I was just gonna say that's the second track there. You've got a cool retro looking video for.
Yeah, well, it's the song "This Ain't My Parade." Uh, of course, the video came after the song, but uh, my buddy Steve Boyle, who did the video, found all this wonderful footage of online of sort of public domain stuff, and had an AI program on it, because he's a video director who does a lot of stuff, and he ran it through this program that got the lips of the people in the videos to mouth the words to the song, which I thought was pretty funny.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and Gary Talent plays bass in that track, right?
yeah, Gary plays a great bass part on it, and Pat, my buddy Pat, plays the George Harrison-y kind of slide parts, and my buddy JB plays drums on it. So that was actually one where there's like some interaction in the studio, or sort of a band,
Mhm.
where it's not just me overdubbing.
Yeah. Now the next track, Aroma Dollarhead.
Lyric first, and then trying to figure out what to do with it. It was like a Shel Silverstein on acid kind of thing. It's like just like what? And of course, it uses a curse word right within the first couple lines, so I don't know if you can play it, but it's 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 just one of those funny songs. Like, what does this mean? And I kind of, as I kept writing the lyric, I kept thinking, trying to make it mean something. And by the end of it, it made sense to me. But I don't know if anyone else can follow that line of thought at all. But it was, and it's just supposed to be entertaining. And it's a big rock sound on it. I love the sound of it.
Well, I liked how you've got that, the rhythm on there. It's kinda got a Tobacco Road vibe. Yeah,
A what?
a Tobacco Road
Oh
vibe,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that
you know?
record.
Yeah, and then but, with the banjo combined with with the rock sound, I thought made for a nice touch.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
you know what? And that was because my buddy JB had a banjo hanging on the wall next to the couch, and I was going to play it on guitar, and I kind of leaned over and went, "Oh, I wonder if this will work." And and we mic'd it up, and sure enough, that was better than what I had in mind to begin with. So
No,
sometimes
it
just
gave it another
serendipity.
flavor.
Yeah, it's sort of serendipity how that all happens. So,
Yeah. Well, you were talking about how there's a number of tracks that you wrote yourself. You wrote "In the Wild" with Elliot Easton.
yeah, from the
How did that
Cars.
track come about?
Well, I met Elliot. I was out in Los Angeles doing a program. There's a great band out there called Wild Honey Orchestra, and I
Mhm.
have several friends that are part of that. And I got invited to come out and take part in a John Sebastian Love and Spoonful. It was like everybody in the Love and Spoonful, the three original members that are alive were all there, and it was like a Sebastian tribute mixed with a Love and Spoonful reunion, and all these people played, and I got to do Nashville Cats, and John played with me, and it was just so much fun. And Elliot was part of that whole thing, and he heard me ripping some country licks, and he came, "I want to talk to you." Elliot, which made just tickled me no end because I love his guitar playing, and
Mhm.
he's just the nicest guy, and we got to be friendly, at that event, and then we kept in touch. And during COVID, that gig was right at the beginning of COVID in March of 2020, and so during the COVID time, we were emailing, and we wrote a song on Zoom, and "In the Wind" is it. Uh, all those chords and the melody, that's all Elliot. He brought that in, and I just kind of added words. And of course, when you add words, that changes the rhythm of things. But he allowed me to morph it a little bit, to make it a real
Mhm.
co-write. And he was really pleased with it. I was really pleased with it, and it's a nice kind of Beatles Orbison kind of, I don't know, combo ballad, sort of thing.
Well, I tell you, I played it to had a number of my radio friends listen to it,
Uh-huh.
and two of them came back saying the same thing, saying that track is something that how do you say it? A track that Foster and Lloyd should have done with Tom Petty.
That's great. I love that. I love
So
that.
yeah, but I tell you, for me, Elliot hasn't. I don't think people realize how diverse his playing is. They
Oh,
think
he's
of
insanely good.
the Cars stuff, but the project that he did, Empty Hearts,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
that yeah, there's a couple of tracks on that where it's if you didn't know that it was him, yeah, because you don't most people don't think of him playing in that way,
yeah.
but man,
He's super capable of doing just about anything.
Mhm.
He's a super guitar player, a really great, and totally nice fellow. Just I
Yeah,
really like him a lot.
yeah. Now another track that you co-wrote is "Keep the Place Clean."
I wrote that many years ago with Pete and Maura Kennedy. Pete played guitar with Nancy Griffith way back when. That's how I met him. And his wife Maura, actually met her before they were married in Austin. But they are a great couple, wonderful people, and they've been making duo records for a long time. And they put "Keep the Place Clean" on one of their records in the 90s. That album was called Evolver, not Revolver, but Evolver. And they did a really great version of it. And that was the only version for a long time. But I kind of went in, and when uh, some of the basic tracks from the songs on this record and a couple of my past records came from a situation here in Nashville where uh, there's a great studio called Blackbird, and they have a class where they teach budding sound engineers how to work in a studio and mix and all that stuff. And they get local people to come in and be the guinea pigs, I guess. But the thing is, if you show up with a couple of your friends, musician friends, you do a big session, and then you pay for it, but you pay kind of a reduced rate than you would be because it's a class situation. And then you walk away with the basic tracks to do whatever you want to with. So I have a whole live in the studio album I cut down there that way, and a bunch of tracks from recent records of mine that were done in the same way. So that song came out of the basic tracks cut at Blackbird. And I just thought, it'd be nice to revisit that one.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a little more background than you wanted.
Well, I'll tell you
but do you know did you notice the lyric on that one though? On Keep the Place Clean.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a stalker, but he's looking not for a victim, but just someone to clean house for him. He's a very lazy, messy psychopath who's just looking, as Neil Young said, a man needs a maid, right? So it's just a silly song.
Yeah. Well, as I say, the next track, Half Mast, on that one of the guys who had commented about the previous track would have been you and Randy playing with Tom Petty. On Half Mast, he was his take was that either you were channeling John Prine or John Prine would find that to be a cool track that he would want to cover.
I was friendly with John Prine, and he asked me to interview him for when he did a book. It was sort of a big paperback picture book, and I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but this was a few years ago, and we did a live stream from Parnassus Books here in Nashville, and he asked me to do the interview with him, and I hung out with John a handful of times over the years. We did a TV show with him years ago in England where we all got really, really drunk and sang Hank Williams songs into the night. I have just such fond memories of John, and not that I was a close friend or don't want to pretend to be that, but he was a really good guy, and he always treated me nicely. And that song was written this last spring. I was down in Texas doing the South by Southwest thing with Cimarron 615, and had some time in the hotel room, and that's where that came out of. And yeah, definitely John had passed by that point, and he's always been a big influence, but that definitely is a nod to John in terms of just stylistically, I don't know about the lyric, but anyway.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the next track on the album, Bill, has got my favorite line, of all the songs on there. The track, The After Party Party, with the line, if you can call Scorsese Marty, you're the winner of the After Party Party.
It is silly. It's a silly song. But I always thought calling something the after party in and of itself is pretty damn silly, too. I mean, we'll meet you later at the after party. It just seems like such a it's just making fun of the exclusivity of it all. It's like the party's not good enough. You have to have the after party, So that's just now there's been a movie. I mean, since I wrote that song, there's been a movie or a TV show called The After Party. So didn't get it out quickly enough,
Yeah. Don't worry. When they either do the reboot of the series.
There, maybe I'll get a theme song in there. So.
Now, the next track, She Cheated on Her Pain. Tell us about that one.
Well, that was the title came first, and it was about someone who was just allowing themselves to feel good again after something devastating, whether it's a breakup or a loss that's more significant, just allowing yourself to feel good again. So that's what the lyrics about. And musically, it's in that kind of Neil Young, Crazy Horse sort of place. A lot of distorted guitars, but melody. It's still got melody, but like, excuse me, like Neil Young, it has a lot of overdrive in it too. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier that bluegrass, which
yeah.
Buddy in the High Grass. How did that one come about?
There's a bunny out in my yard, and there was a period where uh, the guy who was cutting my lawn couldn't make it to this neighborhood anymore, so I had to find somebody new, and it took a while. And my yard got really high, and then I would pull into my driveway, and I would spot the little cute bunny out there with his out in my front yard, just kind of sitting in the sun, just enjoying himself. And I thought, well, there is, I don't know if it's the same bunny, but I still have bunnies close to my house. I consider that a sign of good luck, actually. But I just thought Bunny in the High Grass. The title just hit me, and I went, that sounds like a bluegrass song. So I'm going to write a song, So the idea was to write a song about the bunny in my yard. And that's what happened. And I've been lucky over the years to get to work with some amazing bluegrass musicians, Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas. And I was in a band with John Cowan from Newgrass Revival called the Sky Kings back in the 90s. So I've been friends with and played music with all those people. And I thought, well, so it's not that foreign to me or anything, but I just hadn't put out a bluegrass song myself. And the guy I got to play mandolin and banjo on it is the guy who I've known since high school, who initially turned me on to Newgrass to begin with. And we're talking 1973. His name is David Romer, and he's from my hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky. And he still lives up there, and he overdubbed all that banjo and mandolin. And he's still a brilliant player. He never went pro, but he's really a wonderful player and great guy.
Well, that's really cool that 50 years later,
Yeah.
you guys are
That's
playing
right. It's
together.
been 50 years.
Yeah.
That's true. That I didn't even think about that part of it. But yeah, 50 years on, here's David playing on my record. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the next track, "We Can Drive," you co-wrote that one with
Yeah,
Julian Dawson.
Julian Dawson is an English fellow who really, I've known Julian a long time. I met him in the 90s, early 90s. He was being produced by Gary Talent. And, oh, wait a minute. Nope, it was Greg Trooper that was working with Gary. And Julian and I were singing harmonies on Greg's record. I think that's it. Or maybe I have that backwards. Don't ask me. Yeah, I don't know. I at this point I'm like going, what? Wait a second.
Somewhere all those people were involved together.
But we met in a session. I remember it was at Sony Tree Studio, and we had oohs and ahs, and we'd written out in big ooh and ah. It was just being funny, and he and I started writing songs together back then. He wrote an interesting thing about Julian. Maybe you can edit this part. But Julian wrote the definitive biography on English studio musician Nicky Hopkins.
Oh, wow.
And if you ever see the book on Nicky, that's Julian's book. And
very cool.
So he's a really great writer. But Julian and I have written a number of songs over the years, and I've had a couple tracks on records of his. One, he did a record with, do you remember who Gene Parsons was? He was in the Byrds.
Right.
Not Graham Parsons, but the drummer from the Byrds, and also in the Burritos. He and Gene did a record together. And we had a song, co-written song on that. But anyway, Julian's great, and that was one of those songs we'd written during, I think it was at the beginning of COVID, and it was about just the despair that's kind of out there in the world, and the story sort of unfolds, but you realize by the end of the song, the guy's living in his car. So it's called "We Can Drive." It's the name of it.
Mhm. And then that drive theme carries over to Road Trip Betty, only on a fun way.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's got that J.J. Cale uh, kind of vibe to it, sort of, or NRBQ. It has the same kind of thing. It's just got a sort of a nice rootsy feel to it, and the lyric came from my mother was named Betty. And there's not many Bettys left in the world. Nobody names their kid Betty
Mhm.
anymore. But she and I, when I was a young kid, she would just like pick a spot on the map and go, okay, let's go. And on a weekend when I was like, 10, 11, 12, in there, we would just take off. And so it's an ode to my mom, is what it is.
Oh,
Uh,
that's nice.
yeah. She's
Yeah.
long gone now, but in my head, she still hears it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as you talk about names, the closing track, game show stars of the 70s.
I'd written this little jazzy guitar piece, and it sounded out of place, out of time. Like, how do I put this on a record? And I thought, oh, I could make something fun with it, uh, to just make, again, like the number system, just make the lyric a list of game show stars of the 70s. Because during COVID, when I was like channel searching, just like looking for stuff to watch, I have to admit, I watched some Match Game and some of that old vintage TV from just like going, oh wow, I haven't seen this in
Mhm.
forever. And I was remembering all these people, and I thought, what if I had this little 70s faux jazz kind of piece with a TV voice, sounds like a TV in the background, listing off the names of all these game show stars. I played guitar, and a talented guy named Jim Hoke played marimba and flute and all the rest of the stuff on there. And I recorded it at his house. He's really, really great guy. We do a lot of music together, Jim and I. So
Yeah,
he's
well, I'll tell
cool.
you, with two thoughts on that track, Bill. One, I like how you not only have all the hosts on there, but you also, work in Patty Deutsch and Scully Mitchell and, names of folks that, aren't top of mind awareness, we'll say, all
Yeah.
these years later.
Well, you know what? It's like every name on there, most of those names I chose because I only knew them from those shows. I
Right.
didn't know. I mean, if it was like, there was a lot of really good actors that, like Patty Duke, for instance, was a real regular on game shows and stuff. But she was a really accomplished actress.
Mhm.
And I just thought, well, I don't want to just relegate her to being a game show star. But, and some of them were great comedians and stuff. But most of those people were probably more famous for being on game shows than they were in their other parts of their career. So, that's why I chose the ones I chose, but, it was just fun. It was just
Yeah.
trying to and if it makes you laugh or smile, that's all I'm looking for.
Well, my other thought was, I wish it would have included that instrumental track on there, because the music
Oh,
itself, I find to be a very relaxing piece of music.
well, thanks. It's a nice little melody. Uh, when I wrote it, I just kinda went, "Oh, I like this. How can I use this?" But I just couldn't see myself cutting it straight. I've had a couple people tell me, though, the same thing you just said, so I may have missed the boat. I don't know.
See, when you do the reissue, you
Yeah,
just
there we
include it as
go.
a bonus
Right.
track.
On the box set. Here it
There
comes.
you go. Well, I'll tell you, one of the other ongoing projects that you've got that we didn't really touch on previously either was the long players.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's talk about long playing. we are going to celebrate our 20th anniversary here coming up in this spring. So that band has been around for 20 years now. So it, and to explain to people what that is that we put it together to take a classic album and learn it, get guest singers to come be the guest vocalists, and perform the album in sequence, front to back, and then, you know, what's that, 40 minutes, so 45, whatever. Take a little break and then come back and do another set of the artist du jour, whoever it is. And we've been doing that since 2004. So, and it's been a really fun band. Steve Allen from the band 2020 is the other guitar player. Steve Eby from the band Human Radio from Memphis. They were on Columbia. He's the drummer. Gary Talent was our original bass player, but he's in this other band, and so he has to go do that from time to time. But Brad Jones, who's a great artist and producer, plays bass with us most of the time. And the keyboard situation has been kind of diverse over the years. So, but we're still doing it, and we're doing Beatles Rubber Soul at the end of this month. So it's really fun.
Tell me this, Bill. How far out from the date do you decide what album the Long Players are going to do?
A couple months, and then I have to go out and get people to, agree to come sing. A lot of people have busy schedules. I try to get people sometimes who are involved in the original music. Like for instance, we had Al Cooper when he was still coming to Nashville every so often. He would come and he played the Dylan records with us, like Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61. I think he did Sgt. Pepper with us too. And Bobby Keys, when he was still around, he did some Rolling Stones records with us. And I remember he did John Lennon's Imagine album with us. And, he was on all those records. And Chris Hillman from the Byrds, we did a Sweethearts of the Rodeo with he and Herb Peterson and John Jorgensen out in Colorado. And later did it in Nashville, and Emmylou Harris and all these people played with us too. So it's been really fun, to just reach into the community and see who's available, who has time to take a little time out to celebrate a classic record. So
yeah, well, I was really trying to get down there for your Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Oh, that was a fantastic night. We had both Marshall Crenshaw and Steve Earle came down from New York for that one. And that was a special night. We had a lot of fun. And it's, that album is the oldest record we've ever done, I think. Well, actually, we did Elvis's first RCA album. But usually we're a little later in the game. Sometimes we do theme nights as well. Sometimes we break away and do, instead of just doing an album, we'll do, like we did Laurel Canyon, the songs and sounds of Laurel Canyon. And that allows us to kind of not have to stick straight to an album and kind of do a theme. And we did British Invasion. We did quote unquote New Wave night. And in fact, one we're doing coming up in late February will be the songs and sounds of New York, which will be 60s and 70s and 80s probably, bands from New York that are really, known for being New York bands. It's like Talking Heads and Blondie and Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, and all that kind of stuff.
Tell me this, are most of the albums that the Long Players have done albums that you had in your collection at one point or another?
Not always. Sometimes, it's a bit of a democracy. So sometimes someone will push a record pretty hard and everybody will want to do it but me, and I'll go, I never listened to that record, but you know what? Let's do it. So you find yourself opening yourself up into that. And I'll tell you, as a player, just as a musician, it's been really rewarding in that sense because you learn. Well, it helps you as a player, helps you as a writer too, because you learn the song, the way other people put songs together, and not since I was young and playing in bars and doing covers do you really study songs all that closely, and it forces you to do that, and you pick up things along the way, not only as a player but as a writer. So it's been it's like a graduate course in rock and roll or something.
Yeah. Tell me this, Bill, in your collection, whether physical or yeah, digital, what's the record that people would probably be most surprised to find in your collection?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Uh, I don't know, something as unmusical as the Shags, or I don't know you about the Shags,
Hmm.
the sisters. It's just fun to listen to, but well, I don't know. I love classical music. Don't listen much to opera. I like jazz. I'm big fan of piano music. Bill Evans and Giraldi, people like that. Um, Oscar Peterson. I don't know. It's. I love country. Classic country in particular. Buck Owens, who I got to play with once, and I was on that Act Naturally version with him and Ringo. I got to play guitar on that. But I love George Jones and Tammy, and I love a lot of vintage country stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what people would be surprised, because I've kind of touched on a lot of different things in my life,
Hmm.
recording records. So I don't know, but not that many people pay that close attention. So I'm not really sure what that a real answer would be there. So
Yeah. Well, to me, you can't, there's no such thing as too much music or too many different kinds.
well, that's good. I'm glad you're open to it too, because I get such joy out of it. It's been the kind of driving force in my life, and I'm lucky music found me. I'm happy I found music, at a young
Hmm.
age, and it's just been a joy and a real driving force for me.
Yeah. Well, as Duke Ellington said, there's only two kinds of music, the good kind
Yeah.
and the other kind.
My dad was a swing era drummer, and he was in the army, career army guy. But he managed officers clubs, and I have all these 8x10s signed to my dad from acts that would come through, and sometimes he would get to play with them. I have
Oh,
an eight by ten signed to my dad from Duke Ellington
oh, wow.
and the Dorsey brothers, both Tommy and Jimmy, and so my dad and I would have when I was like 15, I would play him the Who's Tommy, and he would be playing me all this big band stuff. So we had culture wars back then, even then.
But they were both good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know that he thought the Uncle Ernie thing really went, okay, this is disgusting. I'm not listening to this. But I was like, I don't know if we ever saw eye to eye on any of that, but at least we had the conversation.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So, well, and the thing is if for me, I always look at generationally speaking, or chronologically, whatever. Every point of music is a stepping stone to something else because everything takes something that came before it.
yeah, it's true. You hear something in somebody's music and you go, oh, I really love that. And then you realize where they got it. And it's the
Hmm.
same, even the Beatles, you hear Carl Perkins rockabilly thing in there. You hear um, the girl group stuff. They would always cover
Mhm.
"Please, Mr. Postman" or "Boys" or
Right.
any of those kind of songs. And the girl group harmony was in there. And if you dissect it, it's all right there. And the Motown stuff that they did. And one of my favorite bands is NRBQ, and they were always all over the place in terms of
Mhm.
influences. So
Yep, absolutely.
yeah.
So, well, tell me this, Bill, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanna make sure that we do?
Uh, well, we did mention real briefly. I'm not part of the band anymore, but I was part of a band called Cimarron 615, and there is a record that came out earlier this year called Brand New Distance on the Blue Elan label. I have two songs on there that I wrote that I'm really proud of. And I'm proud of the whole record. I just did not want to go on the road anymore. And so I opted out of that band, but I really like the record and wish those guys well on what they're doing. But that's a recent project. And a couple years ago, I did a thing called Project Ghost Outfit with Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick and Adam Schoenfeld and Keith Brogdon. And that's on Apple Music out there too, which is more of a power pop kind of thing. So
Mhm.
those are both two fairly recent, things I've done in recent years.
Yeah. Well, and of course, the new album, look into it, available on all the
Thank you
streaming
so much
and
for letting me talk so much about it. I appreciate
hey,
it.
no problem. And for folks like me who like having that physical copy, you can get the CD through your website, correct?
That's right, BillLloydMusic.net. That's four L's in a row, everybody. It's not passive aggressive, it's just my name. BillLLoyd music.net. And yeah, so those who like the physical product can get it there. And then it's streaming on Apple Music and all those other places.
Yeah, well,
So
yeah, I don't know, maybe it's my age, but I like being able to read liner notes. I like seeing the lyrics. I like seeing who played.
yeah, what's interesting, Michael, is that when my buddy Steve Boyle did the cover, and we talked a long time about what the cover might be, and it's a magnifying glass held up to kind of a cityscape. You see these two people walking away, and it looks like a film noir kind of
Mhm.
cover. And when you open up the CD, there's a insert that has lyrics and credits and all that stuff. The print is so small. I really tried to pull together getting a sticker made that says magnifying glass sold separately because the print is so small on it. Because the cover features a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
But I
Well, see,
didn't get.
just include the magnifying glass in the box set that has
There
the
you
instrumental
go. It's in
track
there with
from, game show stars of the '70s.
exactly. Yeah. But anyway, I really thought the cover turned out great. My buddy Steve Boyle put that together, and he did the video too for that. This ain't my parade. So anyway, yeah, it's a small group of people I get to work with, but all talented folks.
Yeah, well, I thoroughly enjoyed the album.
Well,
So,
thank
in
you
fact,
so much, Mike.
it's possibly one of my favorites because this is your 12th solo disc, correct?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, it's not including all the compilations.
Right.
It is it's there's been about 4 or 5 of those over the years, but yeah, 12, which makes me want to go lie down.
Here, I thought you were gonna say you were gonna go for Lucky 13.
Yeah, I thought that might be the next album, right?
There you
Lucky
go.
13. You may have just named it. So,
Alright. Well, tell
all
you
right.
what,
Well,
Bill,
I really appreciate you giving me the time today, Michael.
hey, not a problem. I always enjoy talking to you. Say, I've enjoyed all aspects of your music going back to when I initially stumbled on Feeling the Elephant, and of course, obviously Foster and Lloyd stuff, where you and I first crossed paths.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah, oh,
That's right.
so many years ago.
By the way, just if you mentioned Feeling the Elephant, one more plug. I reissued that CD a couple years ago. Got a new cover, so it's the third time it's been available, and on 3 different situations. And but I added 10 bonus tracks. So if you go to my site and want to buy the CD, it's like 20 songs now. So and they're all tracks from that era. So mid 80s. So it's kind of a interesting throwback. Sorry,
Yeah.
had to plug away.
Not a problem. Well, as I was thinking about the Scorsese lines, I told you before, the that album had one of my other favorite lines of yours. Got a hole in my heart the size of your jacuzzi.
Yeah. Yeah, that was from a song called Lisa Ann, which actually was on. I was really pleased when Rhino Records did a power pop comp of the 80s and included that song in there, on that Rhino compilation. It was really cool to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that's a great track.
Well,
So,
thank you. Thank you.
so all right. Well, tell you
All
what,
right.
Bill,
Well, thanks a bunch,
hey,
and have a good rest of the day.
you do the same, and then say we've had your social media and website and stuff scrolling across the screen, so folks can find you, get the new album and the 11 that preceded it, and then so they can Christmas time to be buying some Christmas gifts here.
There you go. They're stocking stuffers, folks.
They're perfect size. So,
All right. Thank you,
all
Michael.
right, not a problem. On that note, Bill, we'll wrap this one up. I want to thank you for being here, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.